Hi, this is Mark Satterfield, founder and CEO of Gentle Rain Marketing, with a brief slide presentation that will hopefully be helpful to you if you're a consultant or the owner of a small business. And I've titled this presentation, Wouldn't You Like to Have a Steady Stream of New Clients with No Cold Calling or Hard Selling? And although that might sound like the holy grail of business development, I am going to tell you that with just a little bit of planning and organization and maybe an investment of 2 hours a week, this is definitely doable. So let's get started. Now, I've been working with consultants and small business owners since 1992, helping them develop a consistent stream of new business. And when I meet with them in the initial consultation, what typically I hear is that they love the business they're in. They absolutely love the type of work that they perform. The challenge, of course, is that they just like to be able to do more of it. And in a perfect world, in their ideal world, new business would just come walking in through the door. I think it was best described when I talked with one fellow. And he said, Mark, my marketing strategy, and I wish it worked better, is I aggressively wait for the phone to ring. If the phone rings, I'll definitely pick it up and talk with the person. Well, that unfortunately is the marketing strategy for lots of people. And unfortunately, that is what also results in the feast or famine business cycles. So it certainly would be great if all of our business just called us up, if it all came in over the transom. But the reality is that it probably won't happen unless you're in one of those really strange niches that seem to get business all the time. Now, there's a number of those, and two that immediately come to mind are plumbers. It always seems like plumbers are very, very busy, and it's a yeoman's task to get them to come out to your house and fix your leaking whatever it is. Also, of course, computer geeks seem to be in high demand. People that can actually make the technology work, even though technology is getting easier and easier. But I'm someone who can't even spell HTML, so I'm always finding that the computer geeks, when I need them, are in great, great demand. But for the rest of us, those of us that are marketing services, those that are consultants, those that are advisors, we don't get that much business coming in over the transom, especially during recessionary times like this. So what I think we need to do is, if we market services, we need to alter our perspective. Now, here's the reality. You're the owner of your business, so you might as well start thinking like one. And what do I mean by that? Well, what I mean is that the fun part is doing the thing. Dentists like to drill teeth. Lawyers like to argue cases. Consultants like to consult. Most people enjoy doing the thing that they do. But the reality is that you need to invest a few hours each week in terms of getting new people to do the thing too. So, what are your options when the phone stops ringing and all of a sudden you've got a lot of time on your hands? Well, the typical things are you go to networking meetings, and oh, what a lot of fun that is. Networking meetings, we're talking Kiwanis, we're talking Rotary, we're talking Chamber, we're talking PowerCorp. There's no shortage of places to go to meet and greet. But the problem is twofold. One, when you go there, who do you run into? Well, if my example and the feedback from people I've been talking to is any indication, basically you wind up talking to people just like yourself. All the people whose business is now in the doldrums, and they're at these networking meetings, hopefully to meet some new business. But in effect, they meet people that pretty much look like themselves. The second part that is the danger to relying on networking meeting is that it's labor intensive. And what I mean by that is that you don't want to have any kind of marketing system or marketing process be heavily dependent upon you actually doing the work. Because what happens is sooner or later, eventually you'll get busy. And when you get busy doing the stuff you enjoy and servicing clients, you're going to stop doing the labor-intensive business development work, and networking is going to drop off the screen. So sure, you may get a certain amount of business from going to networking meetings, but from a practical standpoint, it just doesn't wind up being, for most people, an effective way to get consistent new business. What's the other way? Well, you can make some cold calls, and that's even more fun. I don't think that anybody really enjoys cold calling. You probably have seen those advertisements where you can outsource your cold calling to people, and they say they'll only get paid for the meetings they set up for you. And I'm sure it works for somebody, but in 16 years with over 25,000 clients, I've yet to see it work. So you can make the cold calls yourself, and that's somewhat akin to you can plow a field with a mule. Eventually you will get business, but from a practical standpoint, why would you want to? Now, a third thing, of course, is you can get back in touch with all those people who are in your circle of relationships that you haven't spoken to in months or years or perhaps even decades. But what the heck exactly do you say? It becomes so blatantly obvious that the only reason you're talking to these people is because your business is dried up and you're hoping that they may be able to throw you a little bit of business. Well, all three of these, do they work? Sure. And I'm painting them with a little bit of too black a brush. I'll be the first to admit that. But from a practical standpoint, this is not what you want to do in terms of long-term marketing success. Now, what you could do, if you were so inclined, is that you could decide that now is the time to actually put in place a marketing system. Now, when I say a marketing system, what exactly do I mean? And a marketing system isn't overly complex. In fact, it's really only got two components. The first component is you need a process for getting people into the circle of relationships. People that don't know you but might be interested in getting to know you, people who aren't using your services but probably could benefit by using your services. How do you get those into your circle of relationships? And then the second part of the marketing system is what to say, how to communicate with them once they're there, being, of course, in the circle. And these are the two things that you need to focus on in terms of putting together a marketing system. Unfortunately, of course, people either don't do any kind of marketing system, or they tend to focus on the first part, how we get people into the circle, and then, of course, they ignore them once they're there. All right, but let's talk about both of these in a little bit of detail, and hopefully that will be helpful to you. First of all, how do we get them into the circle? Well, there's the old way, and then there's the new, and to my thinking, the far better way of doing this. The old way was you created a marketing message, which basically said, hi, this is me, this is what I do, call for a free consultation. So the call to action was that somebody who had never heard of you before was expected to pick up the phone and talk to you. Well, maybe that worked when there wasn't much marketing going on, although I doubt it was ever a very, very effective way. But from a practical standpoint nowadays, there's just too much noise. There's too much marketing going on. And that message of, hi, this is me, this is what I do, call for a free consultation, it just gets lost. So what's the new and far better way? Well, what we want to do is we want to use a Trojan horse approach. And the Trojan horse approach is free information. Free information that focuses on a subject or a topic of which your prospective clients have curiosity about, that speaks to a problem or an issue that they're facing. So in effect, what you're doing when you're going to market is, instead of communicating a message that says, hi, this is me, this is what I do, call for the free consultation, what you're initially doing is you're putting your emphasis on, here's information that will be helpful to you. I know from speaking with others who are similar to you that many of them are concerned about a particular problem. That's the reason I created this free report, free video, free slide presentation like this, as a tool for getting people to raise their hand. Now, you can use that free report, free slide presentation, or video to get people to raise their hand. And now they're in your circle of relationships. Now, once they're there, what the heck do we do with them? Well, obviously the answer is to stay in touch with them on a regular and consistent basis with messages of relevance and interest. And although that sounds relatively simple, it's filled with all sorts of little mines that tend to blow up this process. And that's the reason why when you look back on your list of your contacts, it's likely that many of them you've not been in contact with for 3 months, 6 months, a year, 5 years, or perhaps even longer. So here's 2 things to think about. In order for this process to work in terms of staying in touch, what you have to do is you have to automate the messaging process. You don't want to have to rely upon you remembering and having the time to stay in touch with these people. You want to set up as a baseline. Now you can always add to this, but you want to set up as a baseline a series of automated messages that are going out that are communicating to the people that have requested your free information. Now, this is also called autoresponders, and autoresponders have been around for a while. Lots of people are kind of vaguely familiar with the term, but also a lot of us aren't real clear exactly about what they are. Autoresponders are simply a database. So when someone fills out a form on your web page to get your free stuff, that information that they fill out goes into the autoresponder. And from there, you're able to send messages. And most of these are really simple to set up. The one that I use is called GentleRainAutomation.com. You can check it out. It's pretty inexpensive, works real well. But there's a lot of them out there. And what you're able to do then is to send out messages so that one day after they request the report, they get a message, and then 3 days later they get a message, and a weekday later. I've got one client, she's a therapist. She's got hers set up so that every 20 days someone gets a message from her. Now she's added to this over time. It's right now 2.5 years of automated messages. And then of course what she does is just, puts them back to the beginning of the cycle, figuring after 2.5 years that people probably haven't remembered exactly what that first message was. But what she tells me, and what I find is true with many of my clients, is the fact that they don't really become clients until after 30 days, 45 days, 3 months. I just signed up a client who had been in my Stay in Touch system for 2 years. So this is the big failing in terms of marketing systems. And the reason is because you get busy. And if you're a small business owner or a solo consultant, that's very understandable. And that's the reason why you want to automate it. Excuse me. All right, so we talk about automation, then the next question becomes, okay, what exactly do I communicate? Well, let me give you 3 ideas, 3 buckets of messages that you might want to consider sending out. The first are what we call tips. These are the helpful messages. In your particular area, you've got a wealth of knowledge about what you do. You've got a lot of tips, suggestions, tactics, ideas that prospective clients would be really interested in learning. Now, I'm a big believer in giving away information because by giving away information, you build trust, you build credibility, and ultimately people are going to want to hire you and work with you to actually implement the process. So you can give away the, what to do because they're probably going to hire you in terms of exactly how to do it. Now, in terms of tips, a format that I use in my Stay in Touch programs is I do letters from a reader, where I take the letters that people or the emails that people have sent me. I try to pick the topics that I think have the most general interest, and I write down what the particular question was and then give a short but helpful answer. The second area of type of message is interactive. Now remember that your prospects are afraid of getting sold. And that's the reason why they don't initially call you for your free consultation. So what we want to do is we want to make it safe for people to start to have an interaction with you, because that's ultimately what relationship building is all about. So, for example, a way of doing this is, let's say 3 days after people request your free report. What you want to do is send them an automated message that says, I'm curious about my free report that you requested. I would love some feedback. Did you find the information to be helpful? Was there information that you wish we had included but we didn't? Just hit reply and share a few thoughts. It would be much appreciated. And so what you'll find is that people would be willing to compose a very short email and send it back to you who might be reluctant to pick up the phone and actually engage in a conversation. And this way we start to get some interaction going, we start to get some dialogue, albeit electronic, and we're starting to slowly build that relationship process. One thing to think about when we're marketing business services, when we're trying to build a relationship, it's all a matter of lots and lots of messages, lots and lots of gentle raindrops, if you will. Now, the third type of message is promotional. Now, we're not going to say something like buy something already, but here's something that's important to keep in mind, which is the goal of all this is to get you more new business. The goal is not to make a whole bunch of new friends. So if you strictly limit your messages to tips and helpful suggestions, you're not going to convert as many prospects into paying clients as you might otherwise. So you do periodically want to put in promotional benefits or promotional messages. And the key there is to include what are the benefits that people get by investing and taking that next step in actually buying or purchasing your services. So if you interact or if you integrate these three types of messages, what you'll find is you get a high level readership, you get a low level of unsubscribes, and eventually you get a very high percentage of them actually investing in your services. Now, of course, what you want to do is you want to have different kinds of services at different price points, and that's part of your pricing strategy, and I discussed that in some of the other programs. Okay, so what we've been talking about today is what to do, how the what to do in terms of setting up your marketing system. The next question, of course, becomes how do I really do this? You know, this all sounds terribly simple from that 10,000-foot perspective. You use information as a tool to get people to raise their hand, get them to fill in a form in order to get the free video, the free report, the free presentation. That goes into the autoresponder, and then you send the messages. That all sounds very simple and makes a lot of sense from that 10,000-foot perspective. The question becomes, how do I really go about doing this? How do I actually turn what seems like a good concept into reality? Well, let me give you a couple of ideas. The first step is I would encourage you to go to www.gentlerainmarketing.com and get my free report. What it does is, in more detail than this, explains exactly how to go about implementing this type of marketing system. It's also got some case studies that will help make it clear to you in terms of how the whole process works. So what I'd encourage you to do is read the free report and see if the process resonates with you. Now, if so, you can arrange for a free coaching consultation. A free coaching consultation takes about 20 to 30 minutes, and we talk about what your goals are from a marketing standpoint, what you want to achieve. If you have a website, we'll take a look at it, and whether or not you ever become a client of mine. The one thing I can guarantee is that you'll put down the phone with some good information that's going to help you grow your business. Now, some of you may be watching or listening to this and you say, hey, I'd like to jumpstart the process and talk to Mark immediately. And if so, just give me a call at 770-643-8566. I answer my own phone and I'll return your call if I'm not here. Or just send me an email to mark@gentlerainmarketing.com. Again, I hope you found this to be helpful. The key in terms of getting consistent new business with no cold calling or no hard selling is to have a marketing system. And if you think about the system as having two main components to it, getting people into your circle of relationships by using free information, and then communicating with them using a variety of different types of messages once they're there, what you'll find is that you convert large percentages of your prospects into paying clients. So I hope you found this helpful. I enjoyed putting it together for you, and I hope I have a chance to speak with you soon. Bye-bye.